fans, and welcome to another episode of High and Tight. I'm John Nolan, the PBR Virginia DC content manager and the Northern Virginia scouting director, coming to you from an undisclosed location right now. With me, as always, this evening is Jason Burton, the PBR Virginia DC scouting director. Jason, just fresh off another week of being at 1,100 games at the same time, and then also off of a wonderful Zoom conversation that we had with our state director, Jerry Shank, going over the updated NCAA rules. Jason, how are you this evening, and how was that Zoom conversation about the NCAA rules?
It was good. Had over 60 parents, players in there. And it was, I guess, over an hour of just talking about the new rule and, letting everybody take a breath and kind of know, answering questions of the ins and outs of the rule. So it was good.
Awesome. And for those of you who we're not on that Zoom and are looking for that information, please be aware that we are absolutely going to cut that Zoom up and we will put it out so that you guys can watch that, catch that information later, because it was a major rule change that was announced by the Division One Council about 10 days ago that goes into effect on April 26th. So again, if you were not on that Zoom earlier to get that question and answer session in with Jerry Shank and with Jason Burton and Jamie Nail, we will have that for you guys.
I was going to say it'd probably be easiest if they email, and we'll have that video downloaded, and just be able to send that to them or share that link on Google
All right,
Drive with
there you
them.
go. Fastest way to get it is to send one of our staff an email, and we will get the link to that video to you. So either way, however we get it out to you, our goal is to try and help you be informed with this rule change because it is a major change in the recruiting process for Division One baseball players, and so we want to make sure everyone is informed. So let's go ahead and move on now. This week we are actually going to break our normal flow here on this podcast. We are going to update our Power 25. We are going to name a player of the week and a team of the week. But then we're actually going to take a minute. We're going to zoom out and do a little mid-season overview of the 2023 high school season so far here in Virginia, D.C. We are not planning to do Scout Blog standouts this week. Please make sure to keep an eye out for our Scout Blogs a few days after any game that we are at. Also, on a side note, look for very detailed breakdowns of members of the class of 2023 who are potential MLB draft picks in the coming weeks. Specifically, Bryce Eldridge, Johnny Farmello, Zaire Hope, Brett Renfro, a few others that we have circled around and we've seen here in the last week or so. We are going to cover them in extreme detail with stories on the website. We've been covering them on social media, so keep an eye on that and look for that as we are going. Let's go ahead and move on here to the updated rankings. Not a big change here. Staying in the top spot is St. John's College. St. John's still unbeaten, 21-0 now. Moving up to number 2, Lake Braddock, 16-0. Independence now 11-1 in the number 3 spot. Mills Godwin at 4. Madison at 5. Big risers in the rankings here are going to be LCA. I'm going to put a pin into that. We're going to come back to them here in a second. Also, St. Albans up into the top 10 as well. And so newly ranked this week, we've got Glen Allen and Nansemond Suffolk Academy. Glen Allen coming in off of its big rivalry win on Friday night over Mills Godwin. Nansemond Suffolk also knocked off a top 10 opponent last week with Cape Henry Collegiate. Both teams have had strong seasons so far. They picked up a marquee win, and we went ahead and moved them into the rankings. So with that said, let's go ahead and move to our team of the week, and let's go ahead and pull that pin back out. And our team of the week here is Liberty Christian Academy. The Bulldogs are up to 8-0 now on the season. They picked up a pair of Seminole District wins this week over an undefeated Amherst County team who was ranked, in a very, very strong EC Glass team that's loaded on the mound. LCA is a big mover in our Power 25. They are moving into the top 10, and they are actually landing now at number 8. Jason, I'm going to throw it to you here. Why don't you go ahead and talk about LCA and their games this week?
Yeah, I got a chance to go to the LCA Amherst game on Tuesday. Will Palmer was kind of the big story offensively for the Bulldogs. He was 2 for 2, had a single solo home run. Winning pitcher was Ben Blair, threw 6 innings, struck out 11. And then on, was it Thursday or Friday? I guess it was Friday. LCA played EC Glass, crosstown rivalry. And the Bulldogs LCA's offense was held down until the 5th inning. Michael Harpster was on the mound for EC Glass, very good arm in the 2023 class. In the fifth inning, Palmer doubled, scored their first, and then scored their first run, or he hit in their first run, and then he would later score on a wild pitch. He also threw 5 innings, 2 hits, struck out five, and then gave it over to Landon Owen, who was also the guy who got the save on Tuesday. So 2 saves on the week for Landon Owen. Big week for Will Palmer offensively, and then obviously holding EC Glass down on Friday to allow them to move to 8-0.
And so our team of the week again, LCA. And now we're going to move on to our player of the week here for week 6. And our player of the week is coming from Cortland High School. He's a 2025 outfielder. It is Lucas Miller. He's a James Madison commit on Monday night in their game against Chancellor. He went 4 for 4 with a double and a home run in their win. Jason, you were at that game. You want to go ahead and talk about Lucas?
Yeah, man, he's long been a physical, and I use this in the best way possible, a physical freak. Like he is filled out, physically mature for his age. Um, and the physical tools and stuff like that have kind of always been there. You could always tell that there was something there, and then just kind of waiting to see him put together a game like that where he just put back to back at bats together. Flat path, got some juice in the middle of the field. He's aggressive in the zone. He didn't swing and miss. He didn't chase out of the zone. Just a really good night for the JMU commit.
And a couple of hat tips to other guys who were in consideration for the player of the week. Just a reminder, the PBR player of the week is someone who had an outstanding performance in a game that we were at. Guys who were in consideration for this: Kenny Michaels, a 2023 left-handed pitcher from Hayfield High School, Wofford commit, punched out 14 against McLean in 6 innings. Bryce Eldridge, the Alabama commit from Madison, had a monster game Wednesday night against Westfield with a home run, 6 innings, 9 strikeouts, and a win on the mound while going 2 for 3 at the plate. Miles Upchurch checking in here for the second week in a row, right-handed pitcher from St. Albans with another complete game, allowing just 3 hits in a win over Georgetown Prep on Thursday. And then lastly, Eli Tyndall, a 2025 from Pocosin, with a two-way performance against Smithfield in their win, 3 hits, and then he threw a scoreless seventh. So let's go ahead and zoom out now and let's take a look at the big picture with our midseason discussion. So at this point in the 2023 season, the public schools have about 3 to 5 weeks left in the regular season, depending upon whether they have a district tournament or not. And those playoffs will begin in the back half of May. Our private schools are actually a little bit closer to done, as most of those teams now have about 2 weeks of action left before their league playoffs, and then the DCSAA and VISA tournaments starting on May 16th. So let's go ahead and spin this around here with a couple topics, and we're going to go back and forth on this a little more free flowing than we tend to normally do. So let's first talk about surprise teams. So generally speaking, we're talking about surprise teams. These are teams that have outperformed our preseason expectations for them. So, Burton, I'll go and open this up to you. Where do you want to go? Who's the first surprise team that's jumped out to you so far this season?
Uh, I mean, I guess the easy one is Madison. Um, and I don't really know if it's really a surprise. No, it's a team that we did not have in our initial Power 25. With the big question being like, okay, who comes after Bryce on the mound? Um, and at the time, to be quite honest with you, we did not know that Cooper Sharnecko was with Madison now, the senior, Washington and Lee commit. So, like, that was a huge addition for them. They have guys like Jason Cassidy, obviously Eldridge. They have quality arms on the mound. And in addition to that, I think one of my favorite players to watch is a 23 catcher who I think, and I mean this in a good way, is a steal for Lynchburg. A great Division III program. Connor Moore, the 23 Madison catcher, he does a really nice job. I think the Jamboree game that we were at, I think 3 guys tried to steal in that first 5 inning game, and all 3 were thrown out on the bag. Left-handed hitter, can catch and throw, handles the staff really well. They have senior leadership, and obviously they have a frontline guy on the mound and at the plate like Bryce. So again, I don't know, like, surprise, but definitely I guess maybe putting it together a little bit better than we thought they may do in 2023.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And that catcher, he had a really good game the other night when I was at Westfield Madison. I think you're right. We were worried about the pitching depth behind Bryce. We knew they had him. We knew they had him in the lineup. We were worried about the depth of the lineup behind them, and they have absolutely shown that they have that for sure, 100%. Next team that I think that is one will stay here in the northern region for Class 6, and that's Lake Braddock. We had them ranked. We had them ranked, I want to say late teens, 18 or 19 preseason. They're up to number 2 right now. They are still unbeaten on the season at this point in time. Uh, Same thing with them. We knew that they had Drum. We weren't sure necessarily who they were going to have behind Drum on the mound. They've ended up having more depth behind him than I thought they were originally going to have. Laskowski was going to be the centerpiece of the lineup. The lineup has been a lot deeper as well. Yeah, Jack McCarthy, 2 home run game on Saturday, by the way. The lineup has more depth than I think we were anticipating with them. They're a little deeper on the mound than we thought. It's not just Drum and whoever else. It's Drum and a bunch of guys who are pretty solid to good. And because of that, they play solid defense. They play really well fundamentally. You've got depth in the lineup, depth on the mound. That's the makings of a really good team that's going to be dangerous and a chance to go really, really deep. And we thought they had a chance to be good, but they are really, really good. And that's Braddock. What are your thoughts?
No, I mean I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think Drum is obviously the frontline arm. And McCarthy, physical bat. They have guys like Laskowski who can handle the bat and do some different things for them. They have Evan Schick, the Marymount commit, who again is just a versatile piece in the lineup.
All right, and that's going to move us on to our next team here. And St. Albans. St. Albans off to a great start in the season. They were unranked at the beginning of the year. They're now actually up to into our top 10 at this point in time, 18-5 on the season. They've picked up wins over Colgan, DeMatha, Jackson Reed. They split this week with Georgetown Prep. I think the big two stories about St. Albans is we knew going into the season they had Owen Basso, the senior Dayton commit, who was a frontline arm. But I think the real big story for them so far this year has been the emergence of 2025 sophomore Miles Upchurch, a Maryland committee committed right before the start of the season, if I'm remembering our timeline correctly here. So you've got two frontline arms there for St. Albans. Their conference isn't the strongest, and that's no fault of their own. So they've done a good job of challenging themselves with non-conference games. They almost knocked off Archbishop Spalding. They've played some tough games. Again, they've beaten Colgan. They beat Colgan to Matthew Jackson Reed 3 days in a row. They split this week against Georgetown Prep. So there is some talent there. They pitch very well. We assumed that they were going to pitch well when Basso was on the mound. That was their MO last year. The question was always going to be what happened behind Basso, and Upchurch has absolutely been the story this year. Bert, you got anything you want to add to St. Albans?
No, I mean they've for the most part they've won the games that they were supposed to win. And then they've had some impressive wins as well. They beat Georgetown Prep this past week. They beat Colgan earlier in the year. They went down to Florida and had some. I think it was Florida and had some success when they were down there. I just think that they've put, they have 5 losses. I think 18-5. So they've had some losses, but they haven't been necessarily bad losses. They had one loss to Sidwell Friends, um, that is a little dent in the resume. But again, that's just one. It was a one-run game. And a lot of their game weeks are 3 to 4 game weeks. Like I think that the week that they played Colgan, that they beat Colgan, they had Colgan, Jackson Reed, and DeMatha 3 straight days. Um,
And then a fourth game on Tuesday before it. It was one of the DC public schools, which
yeah, I wouldn't.
that's a game they should win, but it's still a game day, and you have to use pitchers.
For sure. Yeah. No, they for sure had 4 games that week. I was just omitting that one. But yeah, no, I mean, there's pitching depth. You have Derek Desmaris, and Upchurch and Basso. There's talent up and down the lineup. Like this, it's a good team. It's a good quality team.
No, absolutely, for sure. And the next team that I'm going to throw out here real quickly is Atlee. And aside from the fact that our player of the week last week was a big part of what's going on at Atlee there. Noah Yoder, 2025. Big arm with a big velocity jump. I'm going to go ahead and clear the board and let you run with this one here, Burton. Atlee, one of our surprise teams this year so far.
They are. They're young. I would say they're kind of maybe a year ahead, maybe a year or so ahead of where I kind of thought they would be. Um, and to be perfectly honest, like the offense can be a struggle at times. The offense is light, but they manufacture runs. They do some different things offensively. Um, and to be perfectly honest with you, like the vast majority of public high school teams, if they play a 2 game week, most of them, especially if they play during spring break, the rest of the year is pretty much 2 games a week. And the number of times that they play, that a public school team in Virginia plays 2 quality games in a week is slim. So it gives them an opportunity to roll Noah out in that one big game. And I'm going to be honest with you, like, I'll take that dude versus anybody.
No, for sure. I mean, we haven't talked about it yet, but when we get into playoff time, we'll talk about this. The great equalizer in the high school playoffs when it's one game elimination here in Virginia is who has an elite arm. And there are so many times I just in the existence of PBR that I can think of where a lesser team that had that guy on the mound was able to pull an upset win. And you're absolutely right. Noah's one of those guys. Sorry, I cut you off. Go.
No, and I mean they're athletic in the middle. They had an injury to one of their upper class infielders early on. He's working his way back in, but they gave an opportunity to a freshman shortstop, Will Haney, who can really, really defend. They have Gunnar Stromberg at third base, who has one of the biggest arms at third base that you will see in high school baseball. Honestly, I would say that two of the biggest arms from third base reside in Richmond, with Andrew Harris at Glen Allen, who I saw Friday night, who has an absolute hand cannon from third, and Stromberg. Both are 90 plus guys across the infield. Um, and so you have some senior leadership there with Stromberg and John Best and some of those guys. And then you have Yoder and Avon Stevens, and I think a mixture of that youth, and they're a fiery bunch. Like that Mechanicsville, Hanover area, those dudes play with energy. And I think they're a year ahead, and I think when it comes to playoff time, it could be interesting to see when they run up against a power arm, how the offense handles that. But if Yoder's on the mound and they can score three, if they can find a way to score three and Yoder's on the mound, they're going to win a whole lot of baseball games.
Yeah, that's going to be tough to win when Yoder scores three. All right, I'm going to move quickly here through the last one. The last one we've got here is Liberty Christian Academy. Obviously, we've talked about them extensively. Here is our team of the week, big jumper in the rankings. LCA, you routinely a very talented team. Randy Tomlin, the head coach there. We just weren't sure how it was going to all come together, how it was going to all look this year, and it has so far come together. Try not to jinx them here, only 8 games into the season for them, but they are definitely one of our big surprises. They have far exceeded expectations. So let's go ahead and jump now to some dark horse teams rest of the way. A couple teams that we think might surprise the rest of the way or knock some people off in the playoffs that aren't really necessarily expected or that are going to surprise and go through that. Just real quick, Bert, let's fire through these. Name a team and give me a sentence or two why you think they might be a dark horse in the playoffs.
Oof, uh, you got me. Um, let's go. I'm gonna go Glen Allen. So I'm going. I know I'm riding a hot hand uh, with them just beating Godwin, but I'm gonna go Glen Allen. They have a freshman arm on the mound that is very confident in what he does, and they have some seniors uh, at the corners in the infield and a catcher behind the plate who is a senior, um, who can kind of anchor that team a little bit. I think they're one of the better offensive teams in Richmond, and if they can figure out the pitching depth and if Nienaber can be that front line arm in their big games, they could be. And I know that they were in the state championship last year, but they lost a lot off of last year's team.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and go Gainesville, Gainesville Cedar Run District. they're in that fight for what Cedar Run's only going to send 3 to the region this year. Pretty sure it's going to be Freedom. They might actually lock up the district here in the next week. Battlefield, probably the second one. It'll be interesting to see if Gainesville or Patriots the third. But God, if Gainesville gets into a regional tournament, they could be dangerous. I'm going to begin, middle, and end this conversation with Caden Merritt, the 2025 outfielder, right-handed pitcher who dominates in spurts. He's an impact bat. He's got speed on the bases, but also you've got some senior leadership. Aiden Rittenauer, the 2023, he's a third baseman, right-handed pitcher. Shepard commit. He'll mix in on the mound for them. Ryan Petro, sophomore left-handed pitcher, is really strong for them. They're the kind of team who is just young enough and just talented enough that if you get them into that one-game playoff scenario, they could find their way into a win that you don't necessarily think that they should. I mean, they darn near knocked off Freedom a couple of weeks ago. It took Freedom 9 innings to beat them on a walk-off after some ridiculousness with a couple of pass balls. So first one for me is going to be Gainesville. I think they could be dangerous if they end up getting into that Region 6B tournament. They're a team to watch. They could absolutely pull an upset. Bert, you got who else you got?
I guess it would just be right to go over to the private school side. Um, Dark Horse. I think there's. I'll say this. This is again. Taking the easy way out. There are two teams in Vista two right now. I know, and I would still. Highlands had some hiccups here lately, um, but I would still say that Highlands probably the favorite in two. But I think there's two teams in two, potentially three. But I think there's two teams in two right now that are clicking at the right time, and they are scoring runs in bunches, and that is Nansman, Suffolk, and Greenbrier Christian.
I was literally about to cut you off and say both of those as you were talking, but I figured I'd let you get to it.
Yeah, no, and I'll be honest with you. Both of those teams have to figure out the arms piece. But again, if the road goes through Highland, and I know we're getting towards Vista tournament, we'll preview that a little bit when we get to it. But if the road goes through Highland, they're allowing some runs right now, and they're allowing some runs to some teams that I would not have thought would have scored runs on their staff. Um, and with those two offenses clicking like they do, if they can figure out the pitching piece, those could be two teams in Vista two that make a run.
I'll say this one too, and if we're going to stick with Vista, I'll go Vista one. Sneaky one for me here might be Bishop O'Connell. They are young. They lost like 95% of their innings from last year. I think the most recent region ranking or coaches rankings for Vista had them at 5, but they've got some young arms that could turn around and just shut people down. I think you got a chance to see one here a couple of days ago. I don't know if you want to throw that in here or not. That's completely up to you.
O'Connell's going to run out Khrushchev, who earlier tonight or Sunday night at what 10:45.
Yeah, exactly.
Khrushchev committed like I don't know an hour and a half ago, something like that. I saw him last week. He was really good, especially versus a veteran St. John's team.
Who did he commit to? You forgot to mention that
East
part.
Carolina, sorry.
Yeah, East Carolina. There you go. Okay,
And
not a small commitment.
so Khrushchev, and then you have AJ Murray, who and I don't know if there even is a staff ace, but you're basically looking at a 1A 1B between those two, I would imagine. And then they brought in like I've seen Jack Rampy twice. He's been really good. Um, 82, 84, touch at 5. I'm sure he would run a 6. It's easy. It is heavy. Like I put in the other day, bowling ball sinkers. Like that's all it is. Like it literally comes out of the hand and it looks like it's like 76, 77, and guys just beat it in the ground. And it's fastball changeup, and like he just gets outs. And Kanako's behind the plate has been really good. Like they moved him to the leadoff, and he swung the mess out of it the other day. Michael Powell's probably one of my favorite players to watch at short. Peyton Kijak, Jack Sag, Keegan McGraw, like the Haught kid Noah Haught at second base. Like the list goes on and on for them. They have a chance. I actually had another Vista coach has texted me and talked to me a couple times about it and said like how impressed he was with that group. So that is definitely a team that is one to watch, whether it be
Yeah, no,
W.
and we mentioned it. We mentioned it at the top of the podcast. I mentioned it earlier, and I cut in on you. I'm cutting in on you right now. those arms, when you have young arms that are good arms and have a ton of talent, all it takes is they get through that first inning, and then who the hell knows what happens. And next thing you know, it's 2-0 in the sixth inning, and oh my God, where are we going right now?
Yeah, I mean, what they lost 1-0 to Gonzaga. Khrushchev through that game. Uh, they came to Richmond. They beat St. Chris. They lost to Benedictine in that second game, but they made some miscues. They had some miscues that weren't really like them. Um, and when they're clicking offensively, especially when Powell is going offensively, like that's I mean it's a good team.
No, absolutely. All right, so let's move on from dark horses. Let's talk about individual players. I know we've been mentioning them as we go. So let's go ahead and talk about players that we're looking forward to seeing the rest of the way here during the season. We've done a ton of highlighting players we've seen in our Scout Blog standouts, in our Scout Blog specifically, and then obviously on our social media channels. But there's some guys, obviously, we haven't gotten a chance to see that are still on our list to go here as we work through the rest of the season. So let's go ahead and do one guy who's committed, one guy who's uncommitted, who we're pretty sure we're going to see the rest of the way that we are looking forward. All right, players that I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm going to go ahead and go first. And one of the ones that I'm looking forward to seeing, hope to get to catch him either here in the last part of the WCAC season or the WCAC playoffs here, is Logan Eisenreich from St. Paul the Sixth High School. 2024 right-handed pitcher. He's a Virginia Tech commit. I got a chance to see him throw one inning in a scrimmage in March. We've seen him plenty in bullpens and scout days and that kind of setting. And I did see him in that one inning through like 11 pitches against Freedom. It was really, really good. I haven't gotten a chance to see him in a real start where he's had the opportunity to go 4, 5, 6, maybe even the whole game. And so I'm really looking forward to hopefully getting a chance to catch him at some point and see how he carries that velocity, how he carries an approach through the game, how he attacks hitters throughout the game, and being able to evaluate him on that level. So Logan Eisenreich, 2024 from all the Sixth High School, who goes to Virginia Tech when he graduates. Bert, who's the guy you're looking forward to seeing?
Oh, Miles Upchurch. I know that's the hot topic name. We've talked about him at length, but what a phenomenal year he's having as a sophomore, offensively and on the mound. He's doing some really good things for them offensively, um, but I'm excited to see him in the near future.
Yeah, I like that. So let's go ahead and talk about a team that I haven't necessarily gotten to go out and see yet, but we've had our staff out the chance to see here. And specifically, I'm going to get a chance to see here at Riverside High School here, hopefully here in the next few weeks. They've got some seniors that are really, really good. Kyle Johnson, Kevin McMeans. And it'll be good to touch base and see where they're at. But I'm really excited to actually see their underclassmen. 2025 right-handed pitcher Trey Graydon. He was 86 to 88 at a preseason All-State. Our ground forces guys had him up to 87 against Madison in late March. I would hope to get to see him in some capacity when I do see them, just to see where he's at here now as the season's progressing. But the one that I'm really excited to see from Riverside, I've heard a lot of really good things about freshman Dylan Amos, shortstop, right-handed pitcher. He's done some really good things for them offensively. He's obviously not playing shortstop right now with McMeans there, but he likely will move to shortstop next year once he graduates. So there's a couple of good young guys who are uncommitted at Riverside who I'm looking forward to getting a chance to see here, hopefully over the next 2, 3 weeks. Again, Dylan Amos, Trey Graydon, and then obviously just touching base with all the committed guys at Riverside as well. Burton, what are you looking for on the uncommitted side here?
I intend on taking a trip to Spotswood this week and seeing Turner Ashby at Spotswood. And Spotswood has two uncommitted underclassmen that I'm aware of. Carter Lenz, a 2025 outfielder and right-handed pitcher, and then infielder, 2026 Camden Blank. Um, Two guys, Lenz, we've seen at I think two events this winter, and then we have seen Blank kind of at length for 2 straight years of junior future games. One of my favorite people to be around. Phenomenal kid, but I have a soft place in my heart for kids who can defend, and so he has a place there for sure because he can really pick it in the infield. So get a chance to see him. In addition to that, um, I know we had ground forces out, had Jordan out a few weeks ago to see Turner Ashby, and William Monroe, I think 2 weeks ago. And so, going to get a chance to get to see TA, to see Micah Matthews, which will be my first in-game look at Micah. Um, so just excited to get out there and see some of those guys, some of those younger players.
Always seeing younger players, especially ones we haven't gotten a chance to see, is exciting for sure. So I think that's just about going to do it for us here this week. We've got, like we said, our little mid-season breakdown. Again, team of the week, player of the week so far, and obviously make sure you continue to follow us on all of our social feeds, all of our stories on the website. We will return to normal format next week here as we move back into the back half of the regular season. Make sure you guys are keeping an eye out on us, and we will see you out there.